Hello and
Good
welcome to
evening,
Tete-a-tea.
everyone.
And let me hand over to Dr. Nidhi Garg right away. Thank you, Doctor.
Good evening, everyone. It's time to warm up over an engaging chat session between Miss Astha Arora and Miss Advaita Kala. Today, Prabha Khetan Foundation has come up with yet another invigorating Tete-a-tea session organized on the YouTube page of Kahali. Tete-a-tea is always special because a lot of interesting and engaging conversations brew up as a unique virtual event. Tete-a-tea is one of in conversation initiatives of the foundation under its culture and heritage vertical. I, Dr. Nidhi Garg, a SAS woman of Bhubaneswar, takes the utmost pleasure to welcome you to yet another online session of Tete organized by the Foundation and supported by the Sri Cements Limited. Before I introduce today's eminent guest, Miss Astha Arora, who will be in conversation with Miss Advaita Kala, let me say a few words about Prabha Khaitan Foundation. Prabha Khintan Foundation is a name to reckon with in the propagation of literature, art, and culture. The foundation was established by an eminent literature and cultural enthusiast, late Dr. Prabha Khetan, in the city of Joy, Kolkata, back in the 1980s. Prabha Khetan Foundation curates the best literary and art and culture initiatives and projects that aim to create cultural capital on the global map. The essence is the soulful amalgamation of the multicultural diversities of India through enriching and stimulating conversations. Charting a glorious journey of 4 decades, the foundation enjoys pan India and overseas presence through tastefully curated physical and virtual events organized in close association with patron Sri Cements Limited and SAS Women of India. Allow me to say a few words more about Tete-a-tea. Tete-a-tea is a unique initiative that takes place on the digital platform of YouTube. It is an engaging cultural initiative of Prabha Khetan Foundation, which brews up conversations over a cup of tea. It is a freewheeling chat where notable personalities share insights on a particular topic and enlighten the audience with their experiences and knowledge. Without Advaita Kala, Tete would not have been possible. We are highly grateful to Miss Advaita Kala for creating Kahali platform and connecting our esteemed audience with eminent personalities from varied walks of life on her online platform that creates a scope for insightful dialogues and discussions. Today, we have with us an eminent personality, Miss Astha Arora. She is the head of film and digital content at Purple Pebble Pictures. She is a prolific in her domain of work. In conversation with her, a notable Indian author, screenwriter, and columnist, Miss Advaita Kala, known for writing brilliant screenplays of the romantic drama Anjana Anjani and the thriller movie Kahani. Miss Kala has also two novels in her credit, Almost Single and Almost There. During COVID-19 outbreak in India, she ran a community kitchen by the name of Janta Rasoi in Gurugram. Without further delay, let us start the invigorating talk session between Miss Astha Arora and Miss Advaita Kala. So sit back and enjoy a session that focuses on an interesting topic, the female gaze in mainstream entertainment. Over to you, Advaita.
Thank you so much, Doctor, for that lovely introduction. And thank you so much, Astha, for joining us this evening on what promises to be a really interesting conversation because I've wanted to speak with a boss lady in the world of films and web series and entertainment for so long. And I'm so glad that it's you and we can really gain some insight because I'm one of those people who has such a big problem so often with the content out there, despite being a writer myself.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
that's
Asa,
true.
just yeah, go ahead. Go ahead.
No, no, please ask me anything.
So take
Okay,
us
that
a
I
little
will
bit.
correct.
Take us a little bit through your own journey. How did you get to where you're at today, which is, of course, the successful actor?
So I started with programming in television. I did that for about 15 years. Um, so eventually, once the OTT platforms came into existence in India, I took the opportunity to jump out of television and move into content that I would relate to more, or content that I really believed in. um, Television had its benefits, but since we're talking about the female gaze, I think that becomes extremely important. My experience in television and how women are portrayed in television, and how that starts really the plays into these stereotypical tropes of women that are popular in India and are still popular in India, because television is still doing just as well, right? Um,
Hmm.
for about a little over a decade, I've been out of television and I've been working in the digital space. Um, Now, for about a year and a half, I've been working with Purple Pebble, with for films and digital. So that's essentially been my journey. So once I moved out of television, I took up writing. Writing was another thing that really interested me. I took that up in terms of writing brand films and children's stories, and really all kinds of short stories that I could. I attempted to write a book, but I think that took more patience than I had. So I don't think I've been successful at that yet. I'm hoping to be soon enough. And someday I also hope I will be able to write a film.
And you said something interesting when you walked into the world of TV. Now it's very easy for those of us who sit on the outside to say, "Oh my God, these regressive characters on television, the Saas, the Bahu." Now, as a person, I know progressive thinking, thinking out of the box, want to do something different. What was that like as a first job? I mean, I'll tell you my experience also with TV after you tell us yours. What was that like? I mean,
So TV, while I was learning it, was interesting because what it helped me to understand was to understand the audience's perspective. None of us, that at least most of us that are creating television, don't live the lives that we are showing. That that we are creating for these characters on television. But
mhm,
that journey, while I was learning to understand the audience perspective, was very interesting. But the more I got into it, there was a personal conflict that started cropping up in terms of what we are showing these women as. Most of these women that we portray on television are unidimensional characters, and their only aim and be all and end all is finding a good husband and then winning the family over, which I think
mhm,
limits a woman, and which is what essentially has been our problem throughout, hasn't it? Is
mm,
to see a woman from the traditional, male gaze, which is what everything really is. We are all conditioned in that. The world is conditioned in that. We see everything. Women see each other through the male gaze. It took me a while, even on a personal level, to get
mm,
out of that. Things like women with long, straight hair are seen a particular way, fair skin is seen a particular way. These are all things that exist because of the male gaze. And the moment you bring in women perspective, there's more empathy that starts coming in, which is something that's actually completely missing in television. That
mm,
is what
mm.
started bothering me, and which is why I started, moving away from television. And yeah, I was kind of happy that there was a new foray where we could, different spaces where we could tell stories.
Yeah, I recall, I mean, working on one TV show and coming from films actually. So usually you go from TV to films. I went from films to TV, and I've written for all mediums, TV, film, as
Right,
well as web series. So I've written
right.
across mediums. What I found, and this is of course to be fair, this TV experience is now about 10 years old. But at that point as well, it had been a while since we'd seen the Saas Bahu serials take hold, and even TV was opening up to doing things differently. But
Yeah.
there was this tendency to want the same girl. It was the same girl, and she was either wearing a pilot's uniform or a cop's uniform. So, they were taking that same Bahu. Only now, at that point, 10 years ago, they were ready to put her in a pilot's uniform or make her a lawyer. But she was the same girl.
She was the
So,
same woman. Yeah.
yeah. And I know that
And she
in
was
TV,
still, sorry, but she was still prioritizing the family though. It is
yeah,
only with the ashirvad of the family that she could be a pilot or a doctor. It was not
yes.
her desire. It was her desire propagated by the family.
Correct. And you all in TV, they also used to have these focus groups, like advertisers have, where you would like,
Hmm.
do the pilot or do the casting, and then it would go to this focus group, which were like average viewers. So can you tell us a little bit about this?
See, in all fairness, I think focus groups exist even in the digital world. They're usually, and the intention behind that is really good. The idea is to understand the viewer and understand how the viewer is evolving and what they want to see. Uh, Most focus groups, of course, and see, with television, the India that they were targeting was very different. With the OTT platforms, the India that they're targeting is really different. Um, so when we went for some of these focus groups, when we were in television, we went to these really small towns where lives were essentially where women were groomed to be wives and bahus and housekeepers and mothers. Um, to some extent, that was true for them, you know, and it still is in some ways, right? You've got a show like Anupama today that does try to empower women. It's giving the right message. It's not that TV is not trying. The problem comes in is when business becomes more important than creativity or the message that you're giving. We're lucky that today the audience is evolved enough to see a Bahu walk out of the house. There were times in television when we have sat down in groups and said, listen, the Bahu can't be working because the moment she goes out of the house, relatability of our audience goes down. Because most of
Oh, yeah.
our viewers are housewives. They don't
Hmm.
understand the world of the office. But today that has changed, which is, of course, the most positive thing for television. The OTT, on the other hand, targets a whole different India. Like I said, it's the urban, the younger viewers, the viewers that are exposed to content, global content, which means they are evolved themselves. And which is why
Hmm.
you see more evolved characters and more evolved women in that.
But I find this really odd because the stars on TV were women. They were being paid more. I mean, we talk a lot about pay parity and things like that in the entertainment field. Like in TV, it was definitely like women were dominating the roles, the
Yeah,
best roles, the meatiest roles, the most money.
yeah,
It was all going to women. But unfortunately, here's the dichotomy. It was happening by playing these kind of roles, which
yeah,
were by most definitions would be kind of regressive roles, so that I found
yeah,
that very interesting because the power really rested with these female characters and actors and even producers. I mean, Ekta Kapoor, for example, one of the
yeah,
most powerful TV producers in the country at that time and even now.
yeah, yeah. In fact, even the creative teams were essentially women. Because you
Hmm.
were telling a woman's story, they required women to tell these stories. Um, Most of the women in platforms, in programming, are women in channels.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah, you're right. They were propagating these very traditional. I don't want to necessarily use the word regressive, but that is commonly used. Yes,
Yes.
they were very, very extremely traditional roles. The reason they're not I wouldn't say regressive, is because they actually exist today. There
Hmm.
are people that live that life, and for them, these women that were taking charge, that were talking back to their sas or their husbands, was still an empowerment.
Hmm.
So I'll give you an example. When we went for some of these for these focus groups, and we were trying to talk to women, right? Most of these women would talk to us if their sas or their husband was not in the room. But the moment one of these came into the room, they would shut up. The conversation would shift immediately to the controllers of the house. So there are women that are living that life. So for
Hmm.
them, these characters that were bold enough to stand up against their families, their husbands, even their children sometimes, that was a
Hmm.
huge deal. It was empowerment. It still is.
for a lot of women. And how do you compare this with the content that comes in from across the border, which is the Pakistani dramas? And now, they even they were being telecast. I think it was on that Z Zindagi channel, and it's
Yeah.
really, really well. And people were saying, compared to our dramas or TV soaps, they're a lot more realistic. You don't wake up in the morning with like heavy mascara on and lipstick,
Yeah,
and
I don't think that
probably.
happens anywhere in the world except for daytime soaps in America. We're the only country where people dress up in gold jewelry to sleep. But
Yeah.
uh, they were realistic, and but of course, I don't know as much about their life, but I don't think they mirrored their life as much. Um, for example, the OTT content here empowers women a lot more. I think their television content empowered women a lot more than they were in real life. You know,
Hmm.
um, here the content was to quite an extent based on how these women were living their lives.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, this is an interesting question from Arun Krishnan. He's asking, are we swinging to the other extreme in OTT platforms with infidelity, gratuitous sex, etc., dominating? Seems to be related only to the South Bombay or the Khan Market gang. So we're caught between
uh,
two bar stools, aren't we? Because on one
See,
hand, you have, yeah, go ahead.
yeah, yeah, you will always see, you'll always have content that is made to shock, to again, this is again when business comes into play, right? And of course, um, in the world of clutter, to get attention, there'll always be content that will be a little more extreme, undoubtedly. But there is content that is more balanced that's happening today. There's a lot of writing and direction that's happening that talks to the average person in the suburbs, and not all of it is meant for the South Bombay crowd.
Yeah, yeah. And the shows that are doing well on OTT, actually, they have been super successful. Have been shows like Gullak or Panchayat,
Yeah,
which takes the middle India story, middle class
yeah.
India, middle India out of the, maybe still Hindi heartland. I think that's another challenge. Like so many of our stories are based in the UP, Bihar, MP belt, and
Yeah.
don't quite doesn't quite venture beyond that.
You will have variety on OTT platforms because they need to cater to, like you said, the middle India. They need to cater to small towns. They need to cater to the South Bombay crowd and the India in between. There is so much diversity in India that it's going to be difficult to create that one source of content that will appease all. And when you
Hmm.
do that, you have Bollywood films that have done that for years, but then they also fit into a formula. There is song, dance, hero, heroine, love, and villain. So that, of course, that is also beginning to change. But
Hmm.
it's the diversity in India that leads to diverse content. And I think that's a good thing. That's not a bad thing. So if I may want to watch something that's bolder, I have the option of doing that. While I
Hmm.
still get a glimpse of, middle India or small towns and understand their culture as well, which I think is a
Hmm.
phenomenal thing. It gives me, as a viewer, it gives me variety, and the world gets to see the different parts of India, since content is now essentially global and not
Hmm.
just presented in India.
But why have we been unable to transition in the way, for example, the South Korean shows have, or the Turkish shows have? We've not been able to have that big show at a global level. And someone here's, a Mahabharat as a TV series. It's already come as a TV series. Is there a new Mahabharat coming?
Many,
Maybe.
many times,
Many times, yeah.
maybe.
But we have such a great storytelling tradition, and so much to share with the world in terms of stories. Why have we not been able to become like a global? I think RRR has done that to some extent this year.
RR has done that. Some of our OTT platforms are now beginning to do that. You had a show by the name of Sujal, which was by Amazon Prime, launched in multiple markets and has done well. That's beginning to happen. And I do think the next trend that's possibly going to be global is Indian content, because we have brilliant stories to tell. Um,
Hmm.
it's just how, and of course, the quality of that, the marketing, the presentation, how these OTT platforms are launching them. Initially, most of the platforms were launching content for India. Now they're looking at content that will be launched in multiple markets. So they are starting to curate content that will attract global audiences.
Hmm. And but what are the challenges, Astha, of digital content? Now that you are sourcing material for digital, what are the challenges that you face as somebody who's looking for stories?
To find a good story, um, to find a story that um, people will relate to all over the world, including India. Um, in terms of uh, in terms of storytelling style, in terms of what um, stories need to talk about, it is it is difficult to bring the world in India together. I
Hmm.
think what we need to find is the right stories that will talk about India, that are Indian stories, but the value systems or the material in that is is relatable to the world.
Hmm.
That is something that's difficult to find. We're at different stages of um, like everybody talks about wanting to do the big Game of Thrones from India because we have epics
Yes,
like Mahabharata. But
exactly.
when we talk about doing epics, the point is we start emulating the Game of Thrones rather than being true to what our stories really say, which is where S.S. Rajamouli has really been successful. He has taken the Indian traditions and been able to tell stories that um, just about everybody in the world will be able to understand. Even before RRR, there was Bahubali that people liked, and that was quintessentially Indian in every sense.
Hmm.
Um, I think that is what is missing. Hyper localized stories that talk about India, but when you go down to the human emotions, they're essentially all the same all over the world.
Hmm.
And to be able to find that right balance in how the story is being told and what is being told, that
Hmm.
is
Hmm.
important.
And you're so right. I mean, we have the epics, we have those stories, and those stories really do resonate and have survived hundreds of years. So it's not like
Yeah.
that we've lost them. We still have them. But again, I mean, I know you won't comment on any other film, but I will. But but like recently, I mean, I am looking forward to Adi Purush, and there was all this criticism, and I
Yeah.
found that the kind of dragon-like thing that Ravan is supposedly, which is supposed to be an updated version of the Pushpak Viman, but looked very
Yeah.
similar to what you would see on Game of Thrones. So even when we have our
Yeah.
own unique Bharatiya worlds, there is a tendency that we see from the film and the from the producer industry, so to speak, the Hindi side, where they want to emulate the West as opposed to an RRR where they create their own worlds, or what was that Prabhas film, that those Bahubali world, which is a very Indian
Yeah.
world.
Yeah. But I don't think the inspiration is coming just from, and when I use the word inspiration, that's in quotes, of course, it's not just coming from Games of Thrones. I think there is to some extent a lack of originality and the need to, which is why we are seeing that many remakes today in especially in Bollywood, is there is a need to take content that has already done something and then find a way to recreate that rather than creating original content. I think that is as a drive has taken over, which is why we are facing this problem today. And if we're able to get out of that mindset where we're not
Hmm.
scared to tell stories, where business doesn't take over and creativity is still important, we will still have original stories. Because in my process of meeting people and finding stories, there are so many, even some of the newer writers that come to us, they're surprising. They have some phenomenal content.
Hmm.
But when it comes down to the actuality of things, people are looking at you know certain writers that would have written it. Names become important. Has this film been made before? There's a certainty that comes with content that has already been hit in a market, and
Hmm.
people take the easy way out. Unfortunately, that's what's happening. It's people taking the
Hmm.
easy way out, which is where creativity is compromised.
Yeah, because what the new trend that I'm seeing is really this sort of packaging, right? So, like you said, you package the writer with the director plus the star, and then you go to a producer.
Yeah,
So it's almost like, a McDonald's like value meal where where
value
you have
meal.
all these things together, and then you just go to the
Yeah.
producer and say, hi, would you like to do these, and these are all the names associated. But when the box office is kind of saying, you know we don't want this, or the audience is saying through the box office, do you think that that's going to lead to some sort of change where people are going to maybe make smaller films, maybe not star driven films, but content which is exciting and new?
If anything, box office has definitely proven that content is important. I don't think star value will go down per se, but we will have content that will be better. Um, it will take a little time. We still have a couple of remakes that are going to be released, but
Hmm.
you will have content that will become better. You'll have stronger content. People need to be less scared to tell stories that are original. Um, they need to bank on content. It doesn't matter who is telling the story or who's starring in it. And the OTT space is giving us that platform. We definitely have stories that are different on OTT platforms. Um, Albeit they're in different languages and not just in Hindi, but that's just as something to feel proud of because they're Indian content.
Hmm.
Um, no, you'll definitely have stories. That'll be a huge change. It will take some time though. And
Okay.
especially with the theatrical space, I think we're still exploring what it is that people may want to go back to theaters for. After
Hmm.
the pandemic, and with the OTT platform becoming as popular as they are, um, do films need to be bigger? Do they need to be a visual spectacle? Do the stories need to be different? Um, do they need to be more commercial or more stories with more depth? These are things that we are still exploring. This will take us some time before we figure these out.
But you believe the watching experience is still alive, or has it changed in a way that is irreversible? Because it is difficult right now, although the theaters are open and films are
Yeah.
exhibiting. You don't have that kind of mad craze. People are now saying, "Oh, I'll wait for it to come on OTT."
Yeah, because it's cheaper to see it on OTT. You can see it with the entire family without spending as much money on food. Um,
Yeah.
but theater as an experience is never going to die. That's something
Mm.
that none of us, even if you have big screens at home, it's not going to be possible to get that experience, especially with films that are in 3D and the IMAX experience. Now these can be duplicated at home.
Mm.
These so theater going as a part of um, filmmaking experience, film viewing experience will always stay.
I went to watch a movie a couple of days back, and this big bucket of popcorn was 350 rupees. This big, huh, for those of you who can't. And the bigger one, which was this big, was about 490. Now I'm just thinking, if you're a family of four with two kids and everyone wants their own bucket of popcorn, and the tickets are
Yeah,
minimum 300, 350 bucks, and colas, whatever, that's another like 150, 200 bucks. It's too expensive. So it's not only
yeah,
your stars who are charging, like, who are 70% of the budget, but it's also the actual experience of going to these movie halls. I mean, you get
yeah.
you get comfy seats, but my god, I mean, the
But I
put
have
it all
comfy seats at
together.
home as well.
Yeah, you have comfy seats. I mean, you can lie on your bed and watch it, and pop
Yeah,
popcorn in the micro and not pay like 400 bucks for like this big bucket. I mean, it's insane. It's a ripoff, really. That's what it is.
it really is. But which is why movies will need to offer bigger experiences so that people so it becomes an event going to a film. It always was, wasn't it? It was an entire day out. You would go out with your family. Um, you would plan a lunch. You'd watch a film, eat popcorn, have ice cream, come back. It still will be like that. That will not change. It's just what we are offering compared to what the OTT experience is offering. And there are some really good stories, which is why I think some of the big blockbusters some of the bigger films that have released in the past sometimes haven't done well because there are better stories, and the OTT platform will constantly be giving that competition to theatrical films, because there will be bolder stories that are told. You will have commercial stories, but the diversity of stories will need the theatrical films to be bigger, better visual treats, and the content will need to be strong. It can't just be about a few songs that are shot in beautiful locales, anymore.
Hmm. And I want to ask you this. Uh, there's you mentioned story so many times, and of course I have skin in the game being a writer. When are writers going to be treated better and taken more seriously? I know people like you, because I've interacted with you personally. I know how seriously you take writers and how much you respect what writers do, and being one yourself. But you're not the norm. You're the exception.
Yeah.
What is it going to take for the industry to change its attitude?
Uh, a few more flops. No, but I do agree with you that is not the norm, but that has begun to change as well. Um, Again, the OTT culture, I think, is changing that to some extent. Um, just like the way we have more respect for content that's coming from the South, with the content that has come from there has is exemplary these days. I think that will change with actors, and I see the trend changing already. Um, you have people that are willing to give newer actors a try. You have people that are willing to listen to stories that are out of the box. And I think that, give it another year or two, I think that should change drastically.
I hope so, because I have a friend who follows the South Korean market very closely, and
Okay.
one of her assessments is, and she's very astute. She said that the reason why South Korean dramas do so well, because they're mostly writer led. So, hint, hint,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
required. That's
No, in
required, and
television content has always been writer led. I think
yeah.
long format lends itself to a little more power for the writer. But with films, that will change. It will take some time, but that will begin to change.
And we have a lot of people watching. I know Arun is himself a writer, wrote one really great book, an epic, on the Indian historical, which are very hard to get produced, aren't they, Astha? Because no one wants to again put down the money, because historical films take a lot of sets and budgets and all of that.
Yeah. A lot of time, a lot of research. They're difficult to do.
Well, his book is
Uh,
really well researched, actually. So that research part is mostly taken care of. But still, putting up a set and things like that is something that the film industry gets really scared about. But what are the stories that are these platforms, producers? What are they looking for right now? What's working right now? What are they looking for?
um, Most of them are actually looking for good stories. That is what they are. And it comes down to that. If you have the right story, then the cast, the direction, all of it falls into place. The right story is what is important. Who you're targeting that story to and where you intend to place it. That is what is important. Of course, that comes into story strategizing, but a good story is what they're looking for. Um, I haven't met anybody that has told me you can get me a bad story as long as there is a good director attached or there is a star attached. Um, I've been lucky in that sense, I suppose, but I have not met anybody. So even now, when people say that, listen, there are films that only get made because an ex actor has said, A plus actor has said yes to it, I see that happening around me, but I've not had that experience personally. From me, people have always asked for the right kind of story, and then of course these things come secondary once you start designing a project.
No, and what about like a female-centric film? What is the deal with that? Are they more open to making them? I remember with Kahani, it was so difficult to find a producer and get it off the ground, because first of all, it was female-centric. Then it was in a very masculine genre, which is a thriller, and on top of
Yeah.
that, the heroine was pregnant. So, has that changed?
Yeah.
Do female-centric stories get greenlit faster now?
Yeah, yeah, a lot, a fair bit. Um, I think that has to do with the fact that culturally things have changed a little bit, at least in the urban setting where we see women that are stronger, that are voicing their opinions, and these things have started to trickle into the stories. It's slow, the progress, and we still have about what about 10% of films that get made that are female centric, but that's beginning to change. Um, with films like Gangubai even doing well, commercially, I think that trend should shift even in theatrical spaces soon.
I mean, let's hope so. There's so many great like historicals with female, female centric historicals. But I remember pitching one, and the guy was like, "Oh no, like period film on top of that female centric." He's like, "I can't do it." So,
Yeah.
is it also, we hear a lot about pay parity in the West. Is that a conversation point in India as well?
Oh, 100%. It doesn't get spoken about as much. Um, but I think that's with the film industry, of course, that takes some time. But just today, I read about BCCI giving equal pay to the women team as the men. So we really have these changes that are beginning to happen culturally, and art always reflects how life is, what is really happening. I think that will start happening in this, with um, films like which was the one with Shefali Shah and
Darlings, darling.
no, of course, that was still produced by a woman. This was the one with
The
Vidya Balan
maid,
and Shefali Shah. The
the maid and
Maid,
her.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I forget the
correct.
name.
Yeah, so with films like that, where essentially most of the lead characters are women, the pay parity bit will start changing. And
You're
it
hopeful.
already has started. It
And
already
what about
has
the
started changing since we've got women in authoritative positions, women that are becoming producers. These things are beginning to help. When you have women at the top, they usually are fairer to other women. Sorry, you were going
usually?
to say something.
Yeah, I,
Well, that's
I,
not
I
always the
it slipped
case,
my
is it?
mind, but yes, I wanted to ask you, what is the future of the item song? Because that's always something that's really irritated me, and I'm very proud to say none of my films or work so far has had an item song.
I'm hoping that they will. I have nothing to say really about the items. I'm hoping that they will stop happening. Um, and it's not even the item songs that are a part of the story. I mean, there is objectification of women, and sometimes they're a part of the story, but sometimes they come out of the blue. A story is heading in a direction, and then all of a sudden you will have a woman that will come and start dancing in small clothes. That doesn't make sense at all. But we don't see that dying anytime soon, do we? It's still happening in all the films. Most films are marketed through songs and these item numbers. And for the past some time, the trend has changed to some extent. Where if you are not able to place an item number in the film, you add it with the end credits. It still exists, but it hasn't completely moved out. It's just changed form to some extent because that will then get used to market a film as well.
Yeah, so I think that's also partly is commercial as well, right? Because songs
Yeah,
really
yeah.
work for us as a society, and the more I guess itemy a song, the more playback it gets on the radio and movies and film
Yeah.
and
And
discos and shadis and everything.
reels. I think reels are changing that as well, right? Music and the kind of music that's getting made today is so heavily dependent on what catches the attention of the young kids and what they can make their videos and reels on. The social media aspect of it is also changing music and content to quite an extent. Like there has been so much criticism about songs and music directors, where a 3 minute song will have this one portion that will keep repeating that's catchy because they know that about 40 seconds to 1 minute of that content is going to get featured in a reel and get replayed constantly. So really, music from becoming uh, less itemy is becoming more reely.
And the other thing also that I'm curious to know about is actors, actresses. Are they putting their foot down also? Are they now saying that, I will not say this line, or I will not dance in this particular way, or I don't agree with this, the way this female character is being presented? Or are they kind of saying, okay, big star, big director, let's go with it? And I'm talking
No,
about the
no,
big
some of them,
actresses. I'm not talking about like the girls who are trying to make it and don't have that much agency.
um, some of them are, few of them are 100%. Some of them always have. The number has definitely increased, but it's not absolute. There are women that are still doing content like that, so it's not absolute. And you will, I don't think it will ever be absolute. The item number is never going to completely die. Uh, no form of music really completely dies, but the situation is getting better. There's more women that want to be responsible about what they're saying and how they're portrayed. Uh, what films they are taking up, what content they are, what roles they are playing, and how that reflects on the viewers that are watching it.
Well, doctor, do you have any questions for Astha as well? I've been sort of monopolizing her this whole time, so please.
I think it was a wonderful conversation, and I have also seen all these kahani ghar ghar ki, and all I have seen that my mom watching it, and even today she watches Anupama. When you mentioned that, I was just thinking that still there is a generation and there are viewers for this
Yeah,
particular kind of cinema, because that is the time she doesn't want anyone else to play any other thing, and she wants to watch that.
yeah.
So I'm sure there are viewers, and still this kind of cinema has to be made.
But always will be. You will always have.
I
Go
just
ahead.
want to just ask Doctor one thing. Doctor, being a psychologist yourself, what impact have you seen in your own practice, especially when it comes to young girls, and the influence of cinema, of OTT, of beauty standards, of these story arcs that sometimes put women in certain positions?
So nowadays, when I get patients, majorly the patients that I get are from the younger age. I'm talking about from age 15 up to, you can say broadly 24, 25, which is the maximum age. And the major cases that come to me are relationship issues, where they are either being blackmailed. The need for power of the male is still there. uh, there are variety of events and cases that I've come across. There was a girl who's 15 years or 16 years, and she was dating this guy who's doing his medical, and he's in the third year of medical. And if she's caught saying a lie or she was talking to any other guy, he asks her to do a video call and lick the floor of the washroom.
Oh my God.
Yeah, it was a shocker for me. So I get lot of cases where the girls have not told at home that they are going out with their boyfriend or something. There's a 2 hours flight from Bhubaneswar to Delhi, which is very convenient, that you're going for a school picnic. They go off to Delhi, then they check in into a hotel where sometimes they are filmed. And then those pictures, because of those pictures, they are blackmailed either emotionally or for money. So that I
Wow.
feel there is a big subject of loneliness, which each one of us are going to encounter at some point of time in our life. Even when you are staying with a family, there is a major complaint that we are lonely. There's no one to talk to, no one to talk to, without any filtration, without any fabrication, who can accept you the way you are. I think this is something I feel most of the people who come to me, they are facing it,
It's amazing
and the
how much
research
is
is,
taboo
yeah.
for a woman to talk about or to express in our world.
the taboo is still there. Like I feel even in this age group that I said, the girls or the women who come on their own, it is okay. But when they express this to their parents or their relatives, they say you don't need to go to a psychologist, talk to us. Whereas they judge them, and they can't express it,
Yeah.
and then the issues grow bigger.
What role do you think, stories that reflect these incidents, stories that reflect these kind of conflicts, how do they help viewers who are maybe experiencing something similar? Do they help, or do they become triggers then?
Like people
That's
ask me, sorry, people ask me, you are a psychologist, so what is your role? There was a movie where Shah Rukh Khan played a role of psychologist, with Alia Bhatt. I'm not able to,
Hmm.
Zindagi,
Hello
Love you,
Zindagi.
Zindagi.
Love
Love
You
you
Zindagi.
Haan,
Zindagi.
hello,
Yeah.
Zindagi.
So a lot of people ask me, you are a psychologist, and what is your role? So, and then they tell me, is it that same role that Shah Rukh Khan played? So it helps you create that, ex- uh, it helps you create that awareness, that yeah, we can go up to a psychologist, we can talk it out. When Deepika Padukone told the world that yeah, she was experiencing depression, I think it normalized a lot that yeah, you can be experiencing depression and you can seek help, because that
Right.
taboo is still there. It has,
Yeah.
it will be there also, but it has changed a lot. The mindset has changed. Even if they can't share it with their parents, they are ready to come up and seek an appointment and seek help. So these stories really help when you show that yeah, it's okay to seek help, it's okay, you can go through these emotions, these emotions are real. That is
Hmm.
what I think the stories can make an impact on.
Hmm. Hmm.
Which is why it is important that mass media is responsible in how they portray things and talk about them, because most people get their information from these things, from films, from television, from
Ab-
stories and content. Even
Absolutely.
today, reading and of course a lot of it now is social media, but reading is not the norm. That's not something that most parents tell their children to do, and especially if you're a girl in this in this country, it's important that media expresses some of these things and talks about the more difficult topics that most other parents or girls and families cannot talk about.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I totally agree.
And even if it's in a it's in small amounts. Like I said, with television, even some of these women that were talking back to their in-laws and their husbands was empowering for some of these people, because you're not allowed to talk while they're in the room, never mind talking back to them, you know
Hmm.
um, so television in that sense is empowering the women that are watching it. Is um, is is Bollywood still doing that? There are some films that are, but most of them are still made for just commercial reasons, and yeah, and don't have characters and stories that are more responsible.
Right.
So I would just
Right.
like to add one point, because the movies and the stories are showing that one night stands are okay and sleeping, So all these, the age group that I mentioned, and I also teach with a few universities here, like NIFT, and also the students tell me that it's, they have a different perspective towards it. It is like changing clothes for them,
Hmm.
which affects you emotionally, maybe not today but later.
The
And
Tinder culture is harmful as
yeah,
well. Yeah.
yeah, in Bhubaneswar, I'm talking about Bhubaneswar. So students are so upfront, and they would tell me that ma'am, this does not affect emotionally, it's okay, it's our need and we are just gratifying it, and we are not emotionally, we'll go back and we have to get married according to our parents wish and choice. So we are here to have fun for 4 years. They're very clear
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we are here
But
to have fun.
are they able to deal with it emotionally? That's the question. Are they able, or are they talking big? I mean,
No, so all these girls who come to me, they are not able to handle this later on,
Correct.
but initially when they are just out of the house, they have this opportunity, they are thinking that we are here to party, and so
There's a
let us
pseudo
make the most of what
freedom,
we what is
sense of pseudo freedom.
available to us. Yeah, yeah, the pseudo
Hmm.
freedom is so attractive. And
Yeah.
not only girls but also boys, and later on
Yeah.
they come, and that they come to me when at the age of late 20s and early 30s, or maybe later, that when the relationship did not work out, or they have switched over 3 4 relationships, every time invested the same emotion, and now they are feeling lack of it. So then they come, and then it is a huge problem for them. Then sometimes people are not even able to trust anyone.
Hmm.
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 So,
I think a lot about the life for the younger generation, whether it's social media or whether it's the Tinder culture. I think it's stopping them from making strong emotional connections anywhere. And they're learning to shove that away, and eventually bottling up all of these emotions is what then creates these emotional issues and depression. And yeah.
absolutely. Now, there's one thing that I got reminded of, that I get housewives as my clients, and they complain that the others are having fun. So, all these reels and the social media and everything that they are posting has a major impact on the psychology, on the mindset, on the mental health of the counterpart who is sitting at home and working and slogging and bringing up her kids and doing all the kitchen household works. She's not happy. She's feeling the discontent. Whereas if I think of my mother, she did the same thing, but she's super proud that, oh, my kids are doing well, and that is all I wanted. But
Hmm.
now there is a big disparity on what they want to do, and what others are doing. The
Hmm.
Yeah.
comparison is that she's gone on a holiday and I'm not. I'm at home. Her
Yeah.
husband gave her a gift. My husband did not give me a gift. So
Yeah. So the good
You're
news,
only
Asta, is that it's not just films that can have this kind of an impact on people's psychology, but also Instagram
absolutely.
yeah,
feeds
yeah.
and
Social
like,
media plays a bigger part today than anything else can.
yeah.
Social media is so majorly a part of our life. We're constantly, I mean, how many times in a day do we end up seeing a video that's been forwarded on WhatsApp or go on Instagram? And some of the times, so if on a free day, I'm not a very heavy social media user, but if on a free day, if I've gone to Instagram 2 or 3 times even, there are people that have posted stories that many times. You know, they will
Mm.
post every time they're doing something. All of their activities are there on social media to see, and all of the good things, none of the bad or ugly things of life are ever make it on social media. Instagram, I think, is probably most responsible for that.
Hmm, hmm, hmm. Yeah, I mean, I'm basically on Twitter where everybody is very angry. So I think I think I'm saved
So you
a
see the
little.
angry side of people.
Yeah, I feel very zen and good about myself because I don't get that angry. So it's actually good for my mental health because I don't
That's
get triggered
fantastic.
easily. Yeah.
Even if you want to expose yourself to a good content, you can't choose it. When the reels are playing one after the other, and you get you try to indulge in it. Even if you
Yeah.
I have a timer for myself, that how much time am I spending on Instagram and all, but still you tend to sometimes remind me after 15 minutes, and you indulge in it. So
Hmm.
it is playing a major role. And there's a
Hmm.
very very big part of population which is living on these medias, on these social medias.
Hmm.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I've seen these great, and I think it would make for a great show as well about these influencers, and how in America and places like that, you can rent a jet for like an hour or half an hour. And it's, of course, like it's not flying anywhere, it's on the ground, or it may even just be a set. And you can go sit there and take photographs and say, my private jet out to so and so. And I mean, it's just fake it till you make it, right?
Yeah,
In
yeah.
China, there is a trend where a bunch of women come together because they can't afford to rent it themselves. There's a bunch of women that will do that. Hire rent a bag, rent a hotel room, and they will take chances, turns to click pictures. So all of them have similar pictures. All of them have click pictures in the same bathtub, and they're all selling it as the high and big life. So yeah, it's changing the mindset of people, um, and yeah, the whole idea to do this really is so that they're seen as rich women and are able to trap rich husbands. That's the aim,
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
which is really interesting.
Very interesting. But this has been a really interesting conversation. I love it when we can take segues into areas that we didn't anticipate
We
going
didn't
into.
even
But
intend. We didn't intend. I don't think we've spoken about the actual topic at all. I think today.
Yeah.
but I think it's also heavily linked now because unlike
Yeah,
even 5 years ago, today everybody's a content creator. I mean, the guy sitting next to you in a
yeah,
restaurant is a content
Yeah.
creator, and he'll
yeah.
tell you that. So
Well,
I
last
think
time
it's
I was sitting in a restaurant, I had a content creator who basically before the food came in to the time that the food came in, they were only taking pictures. I don't think they actually enjoyed their time at that
Food.
restaurant at all.
so true, so
It
true.
was astounding.
And I think I'm just so grateful that there was no internet when I was young, because on the internet things live forever. And I just feel for those girls that you're talking about, and so many others who do these silly things just for the likes and the this thing, and
Yeah,
don't have the time to grow out of it. I remember this. People have lost jobs for things that they did when they were 17 and 18. It's crazy, this cancel culture
yeah,
and all of that. It's so complicated now,
yeah.
really. But
Absolutely.
anyway,
It is
thanks,
really.
Astha, so much for joining us. And we've already
Thank you
gone
very
over
much.
time. That's why I'm kind of rounding it off. And I'm going to
No, no,
hand
no,
over
please
to
do.
you now.
Uh, okay. What a wonderful session it was. The thought provoking discussion on a relevant social issue, the female gaze in the mainstream cinema and entertainment platforms kept us riveted. On behalf of Prabha Khaitan Foundation, I, Dr. Nidhi Garg, SAS Woman of Bhubaneswar, would like to thank Miss Astha Arora for her thoughtful insights and Miss Advaita Kala for hosting today's Tete-a-tea session on her YouTube channel. I would also like to express my sincerest gratitude to patron Sri Cements Limited and associate Kahali. Last but not the least, a big thank you for an amazing audience. Thank you for your precious presence in today's online session. It made all the difference. Thank you so much. It was amazing to be a part of this conversation. I think I got a lot of insights too. Thank you. Good
Thank you
night.
very much for having me, guys.
Everybody
Bye.
also for watching, and we're going to continue to bring you this content whenever we can. And I really want to thank Prabha Khaitan Foundation for really investing the time and the effort and making these conversations happen, which are about the world we live in, the female experience, art, culture, just areas that we really need to talk about in the cluttered world of social media. And I'm really grateful to them that they make this happen every month. And next month, we'll be back with another perspective, another interesting personality, and talk about, I don't know. If you have ideas, send them in. Thank you, everybody, for watching, and happy Diwali belatedly. And going forward, we head into Christmas and New Year. So fun times. Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Lovely talking
Bye.
to both of you.